Hello everyone, this is Goosebumps Godzilla, and today I'm going to be talking about how Mr. Mortman from The Girl Who Cried Monster is actually a human, not a monster. So viewer beware, you're in for a scare, and let's get started with this theory. Okay, before I go any further, just want to say there are going to be spoilers for The Girl Who Cried Monster, so if you haven't read that book, there's going to be some major spoilers, but other than that, not really going to be delving into any other Goosebumps book with spoilers, I don't think. So, just The Girl Who Cried Monster, so if you haven't read that, turn back now. But anyway, guys, let's get into this theory for today. Okay, so in The Girl Who Cried Monster, we meet our main protagonist named Lucy Dark. Basically, she goes to the library for this reading program, and she meets Mr. Mortman. Mr. Mortman is basically just this librarian that, is just your average librarian. So, anyway, she accidentally leaves her, skates or something at the library. So, she goes back there after closing time, and she sees Mr. Mortman as a monster who is eating flies and baby turtles. And so then she tries to tell her parents and brother and stuff like that, but none of them believe her due to her telling many monster stories beforehand because she is obsessed with monsters. So they don't believe her. And basically Mr. Mortman's just stalking her, you could say. And anyway, in the end though, the parents do believe her. And they kill Mr. Mortman once they invite him to dinner and trick him and, eat him alive. And so I always thought Mr. Mortman's ending was a little unjust because all he really did was eat flies and some baby turtles, and that's it. He was just trying to defend himself, really. I mean, he didn't want others to figure out that he was a monster, so they would chase him out of the town, all that stuff. I mean, he's really just a good person, he does the right thing, he works hard at the library, he just does some, your average person. I said that a bunch of times, but it's true. He's just average, and he is possibly a monster. I'm going to prove that wrong, hopefully, in just a second. But, even if he was a monster, it still didn't justify the fact that he was eaten alive. He didn't do anything wrong. And so, I've always felt sorry for Mr. Mortman. But today I just got this theory that instead of him being, halfway possibly evil by him actually being a monster, I came up with the thought that maybe he actually isn't a monster. And so that's pretty much his theory for today. I'm going to try to prove that Mr. Mortman is not a monster. I already know pretty much that he's not evil due to him not really doing anything, but that's not the point. Just, trying to prove that he is actually human, not a monster. And the first evidence we have of this is the cover art for The Girl Who Cried Monster. So, if you take a look at the cover art, you see Mr. Mortman, and he's basically holding a bug in his hand. And you see our main protagonist, who is Lucy Dark, and you can see the horrified expression on her face. So this means that in this scene, he is eating the flies, and at this point in time is, a monster in his monster form. But when you look at this, you see this normal guy, Mr. Mortman kind of looks weird, but he's not a monster by any means. I mean, he just doesn't look like a monster. He's just holding up a fly in his hand. He looks normal, and, he's normal. He looks like a human being, but she has this horrified expression on her face. This means it is a scene where he is eating flies due to this horrifying expression, and he's not in his monster form. This sort of proves that he is a monster, but also you can take a look at the Danish cover art, or Dutch, I can't really remember, maybe that's the same thing. Sorry, I don't know. I can't really remember at this point in time, but you can see the cover art to The Girl Who Cried Monster in that country. And Mr. Mortman, this is a scene where he is eating the turtles, guaranteed, and he's in his human form. He's not in a monster form, he's in his human form. The book describes Mr. Mormon to be in a monster form, but the cover art shows something different, that he's a human. And keep in mind, this book was told from the perspective of Lucy, who is practically obsessed with monsters. So my sort of thought is that she thinks Mr. Mormon's monster. Maybe she's like so obsessed with monsters that she thinks or, imagines or, anything that she sees Mr. Mormon turn into a monster. That's her trying to tell the family, but in real life, he's actually not a monster. And there's further evidence for this in the end of The Girl Who Cried Monster. When her parents turn into monsters and devour Mr. Mortman. And so if you look at this, it's kind of strange. Mr. Mortman is in his human form. His monster form is most likely more powerful than his human form, so why won't he turn into a monster in order to defend himself? I mean, he should. That would be the smart decision if he wants to survive. But he doesn't. And it's really strange how he doesn't. And it's kind of weird how he doesn't change into a monster when he's getting devoured alive so he could defend himself. I just found that very odd. And I think it's further proof to prove that he is not a monster. And it was all Lucy Dark. And something strange also that kind of proves that she did envision that she saw Mr. Mormon turn into a monster and, just thinks she sees it, is the fact that she read Frankenstein pretty much about the same time as she sees Mr. Mormon turn into a monster. Mr. Mormon's design in the episode, he's kind of sort of got that, yellowish skin. That is sort of the same skin color as Frankenstein from the Mary Shelley book. In the movies, it's different. He has, a green design, but in the book, I think he has a yellow design, and he's yellow-skinned, just like Mr. Mormon, and they both sort of feature the same plot. An obsessive person creates or sees a monster that has yellow skin, and that monster is not accepted by society, even though the monster itself wants to fit into it. It's almost perfectly aligned sort of with the main plot of Frankenstein, a book that Lucy Dark had just read during the same time that she sees Mr. Mortman turn into a monster. And so I think the ultimate evidence is from the scene where she, gets the photographs out that she took of Mr. Mortman. When you look at the photographs, it just shows an empty desk, kind of proving all along that she did not actually see Mr. Mortman turn into a monster. And so, that is pretty much my theory for today. And, just to sort of go over all the points that I went across is the fact that he doesn't turn into a monster in cover art, even though at that point in time when the cover art is taking place, he should have been a monster. Also, the fact that he didn't defend himself when he was attacked, and defend himself, and turn into a monster when he was attacked by Mr. and Mrs. Dark. And another fact that proves this is, how the photograph that Lucy took of Mr. Mormon showed no one in the chair. And, the other point that I think I went over is that, what was it? I can't really remember right now. I went over one of the points in the theory that had a bit of evidence. Can't really remember. I know there was one more point that I went across. Still can't. Oh yeah, is the fact that the Mr. Mormon's design and pretty much all that stuff is very similar to how Frankenstein was described in the book, and the whole plot of the book honestly fit very much with Frankenstein, the book that Lucy had read only the day before. And keep in mind, she is obsessed with monsters, and so it is possible that she just saw this, or thought she saw this, or something like that. But anyway, guys, comment down below what you think about this. Do you think Mr. Mortman is a monster, isn't a monster? I don't know. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section below. Also, comment what you guys think I should do for my 100 subscriber Q&A, I'm sorry. 100 subscribers special. I don't really know what I should do for that yet. I did get one comment on my last video about what I should do. Comment down below, what you guys think I should do. And thank you guys so much for watching, and that's the end of my video.